when I first started going out as a teenager, I was going out in Chicago. Started going out in 1986, kind of right as people started to call it house music. The beginning, like, was just kind of dance music. No one really called it anything.
Most people don't know the origin or the etymology of house music. You know, they think like, oh, it's music that you play at a house party. It's like, no, Frankie went to play at this club in Chicago called the Warehouse, and he got known for playing a certain type of music at the Warehouse, and so people in Chicago started saying, oh yeah, Frankie Knuckles, he plays that house music.
I mean, house music was black and gay and very, very underground.
What really killed disco, at the heart of what it was AIDS. Because in the early 80s, a disease was decimating the people who were dancing in those clubs.
That's house music. It's disco's revenge. The very basic roots of it, which is respect for everybody, understanding of the gay, black, Hispanic founders of it.
Larry Levan and Frankie Knuckles' lineage goes all the way back to David Mancuso's loft parties, which started at the end of the 60s. They both started to DJ at the Continental Baths, which was a very famous gay bathhouse here in New York, which launched the careers of Barry Manilow, Bette Midler, like all kinds of like amazing things came out of the Continental Baths.
It is disco music, you know, so it's not really that much different. See, the thing about it is that in the middle, like in the middle 70s, you know, and the early 80s, it was all disco music then. You know, there's so much stuff that was produced, I mean, and really produced well and put out on the market, you know, and the thing about it is that a lot of it got past the city, you know, and the city on a whole, but as far as like, you know, the Warehouse was concerned, it was the only after-hours club here, you know, and I was allowed to get away with anything I wanted to when it came to, you know, putting music on for them, you know, and people accepted that.
Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan are the godfathers of house music, club culture, the idea of the DJ being a very powerful figure, and the idea of the DJ being a curator. They took that very, very seriously.
The reason that Frankie went to Chicago was because Larry didn't want the job. He didn't want to leave New York. Larry was the first choice for the Warehouse. The two of them looked at DJing and looked at dance music with so much reverence and so much passion. They sat around all week long getting ready for the weekend, trying to figure out like how they could mix these records together in like the craziest way.
From house, from techno, you know, from Chicago house to Detroit techno. All that music was built around a DJ and a modest size space making people groove.
Techno came out of Detroit, and techno sounds like Detroit. It was really made using machines that weren't meant to be used in that way, making industrial-like sounds, but in a utilitarian way, with repetitive beats so that people could dance to it. Techno is a lot more stripped down. Frankie Knuckles invented house music, but then he carried it through its next 20 years of life, you know, as the most amazing emissary for it.
So there was this record store called Dance Tracks, and it was like the East Village hub for dance music. And you'd always see Frankie there. He was so friendly and so kind, you know, kind of like this big, jolly, happy house music DJ, but you always knew that like he was the man who invented house music.
When I think about Frankie Knuckles, you know, I took his passing very hard. Deep house is like literally just on the brink of being accepted as like a genre of music in America. And he's not going to be around to see it.